This presentation isn't meant to be a review of Path of Exile. I'll be focusing on the negatives and not the positives, so if you're new to the game or haven't played it before, this video will not provide a fair first impression. Path of Exile is a great game, and the developers at Grinding Gear Games really have their heads on straight. They patch the game frequently, minding the smallest details, keeping it neat and collected and new. They have committed to never sell power, and ever since I learned that, I have had a sort of unconditional love for the game. So with that, I begin. There have been a bunch of problems discussed on the forums over the years, and lots of them are, of course, related. The vast majority of them fall into three interconnected core categories. Because of this connection, they have to be tackled together, but conversations about these topics tend to shut down long before the big picture is realized, which is why I'm hoping a video format will finally work. Call me whatever names you want, get it out of your system, but please consider the points I'm actually making. Here we go, one at a time. Facerolling. This is what happens when only a few repetitive actions are necessary to be successful. Path of Exile is the greatest game of all time for theory crafting. The gameplay, however, is a different story. Despite all the build variation, there's practically no variation in playstyles. We can do sufficient damage spamming a single ability, and can also have sufficient defenses to ignore all the mechanics of all the content in the game on one solo character. This shouldn't even be possible, let alone easy. Now, if anybody thinks that Path of Exile is supposed to be an easy face-rolling game, I have an even better game that I know you'll love. Want to see it? Here it is. Boom! Look at all those explosions! You already won! Isn't that fun? Have at it. I think the majority of us don't want all this, and this to be a Rube Goldberg machine for what color particle effect we melt our graphics card with. It might be fun for a while to indiscriminately pop screens full of enemies, but that cheat codes enabled feeling wears off and the costs remain. We lose the whole point of build diversity, cooperative play, and challenge itself. It's hard to recruit new players into this environment. Challenges do exist, but we're conditioned to either trivialize them or avoid them because of the other two problems. As you will see, from a development standpoint, it's a rigged balancing act, the biggest enabler of which is a bad resource system. The rate war. Healing is too high, mana regeneration is too high, damage is too high for both players and mobs. All the bloody rates are too high. Your game has a perfect example of a rate war, which I detail in a separate video linked in the description. If two competing forces, like healing and damage, are both too strong because they were designed around each other, the result is a spiky life meter and all the millions of problems that emerge from it. When we can fully heal our life and mana in half a second, unless something can kill us in half a second, we're not going to care about it. That's why the middle ground between boring, predictable face-rolling and frustrating, unpredictable one-shots doesn't exist. That's why evasion, dodge, and block cannot be balanced, why there are exaggerated differences in performance between characters that can survive spikes and the ones that can't, and why surviving spikes is all the life meter boils down to. Path of Exile is not the only game to have this problem, far from it. But man, is it excruciating to watch this lesson be learned over and over again in slow motion. Nerf healing nodes, nerf Volpact, nerf life drain on items, change the way life drain works, nerf healing nodes again, nerf Volpact again. Guys, why have you been so cautious with stats that reduce damage by a flat number? Whatever that reason is, it applies to endless regeneration effects even more. The death penalty. I've detailed my thoughts on penalties in a separate video linked in the description. The gist is, when receiving a penalty in a game, we instinctively compare the time we lose to the time over which our errors occurred. Losing hours of experience feels wrong because we didn't make hours worth of errors that brought about our death. We probably made only a few seconds worth of errors, which is largely due to the rate war. The death penalty is unable to make sense because of the rate war. Players can heal so fast they will never die except to spikes. When what you lose and why you lost it are so tenuously connected, it defeats the purpose. Oh, and on top of that, we can't see the game. No, I'm serious. It's not just that death happens faster than we can react. We can't see anything! Is there something important in that mess of particle effects that I should have been aware of? I guess there was. Well, let's just check the combat log to see if we can learn something. And there's no combat log. Hey, let's talk about Alt F4. If logging out of the game is a way to avoid death, the death penalty isn't punishing death, it's punishing not logging out of the game. Not only does the game have to kill players before they can react, it has to do it faster than they can hit Alt F4. And I thought rate wars were bad. This is the single most ridiculous thing I've seen in my entire life. An exploit that has gone for so long that the game has been unintentionally balanced around it. Any penalty for death is a joke as long as this is a thing. For the sake of argument, let's just ignore that stuff. If players earn experience depending on what they're fighting, why is the experience penalty independent of this? If I'm earning XP at 30% the normal rate because my level is too high, why do I still lose 10% of my current level XP no matter what? Look at this. This is the wiki explaining how experience works in PoE. Here's your formula for experience multiplier for level differences. Here's your formula for how experience is shared in party play. Where's the part about death? Oh, here it is. The smallest, most unimportant looking section of the page. Come on, people. The experience gain needs to be this complicated thing, but experience loss can be just some nothing of an afterthought? The fact that you invested this kind of time into deciding how experience should be gained is as good as a confession. You know the experience loss part is undercooked. It's just one of the crappier concepts that somehow made the cut from Diablo 2. Name any purpose you think the XP penalty is serving. If you lose no experience when you have no progress into the current level, the XP penalty doesn't serve that purpose because it doesn't exist. Death means nothing during early bosses either. You respawn right outside the boss room and can zone right back in immediately. Death is just a way of getting your flask charges back. Why the heck are you preparing new players for a completely different game than what they will experience at high levels? At high levels, the penalty can be so prohibitive that players have to avoid challenges if they want XP, either by grinding or by building to have tons of damage, no weaknesses, and then also grinding. Needing to actually pay attention to mechanics has become a sign that you're playing the game wrong. Challenge bad, grinding good. I swear, this has gone so far past the point of absurdity that our brains just short-circuit when we think about it. Hey, we should do something about this. Bzzz. Nah, it's fine. If you happen to be this guy, why don't we lose even more experience? Levels, item durability, gem experience. Why don't we respawn naked and have to run back to our corpse? If the current penalty were swapped for any of these, would your reasoning not also exclude it? GGG. The penalty itself isn't the only problem. The repercussions of favoring it are part of a feedback mechanism that has been ruining your hard work for years and years now. It's time to get this corpse off this hill. It's not a matter of the game being too difficult for this player or too easy for this player. It's that the game cannot produce a proper challenge for anyone. Players avoid the death penalty by avoiding challenges, which the game allows and requires in the form of Facerolling, which is further enabled by the rate war, making one-shots the primary cause of death, and any death penalty nonsensical. Nowhere in this mess can you even attempt to insert a legitimate challenge. You're not going to turn Path of Exile into something it doesn't want to be by solving it. The death penalty is probably the easiest to fix. It just needs to make sense. You can't replace a real challenge with an inconsistent, regressive penalty system. Here's a bunch of ideas you haven't tried. But, in the long term, migrate over to checkpoint penalties. A checkpoint penalty is traditionally where a player loses a life and respawns at a checkpoint, which you already have in the form of your 6 portal system for maps. Losing a portal is already a pretty solid penalty considering how expensive maps and map consumables can be. Eventually, you won't need the XP penalty. In the meantime, here's another idea. Create a new item associated with some NPC that has something to do with lost experience. This NPC could give a quest that is different depending on how much XP the player has in their XP loss pool. Perhaps, depending on how large a player's XP loss pool is, the quest will be focused more on either liberating that XP or getting loot. It accommodates regular and hardcore, it doesn't goof with an underlying penalty, it doesn't goof with ladder races, and it gets your foot in the door. To solve face-rolling, address the reasons why players do it, and you can then properly incentivize not doing it. For example, get rid of gratuitous particle murder so we can actually react to what we see. Create an action queue where the game remembers the most recent key press during an animation so we don't have to mash buttons. Either remove or add drawbacks to spell proccing support gems. Cast when damage taken especially will undermine any new attempt at getting players to react to things. Movement skills should not be replacements for running. They should be situational tools. Give them some additional effects, but prevent the spam. For example, Shield Charge has charges, but gives a short duration block aura. I get it, you want players to be able to bypass limitations, but if I want to do this, there has to be a trade-off. We need incentives to play in groups. Path of Exile is an online game with a 6-member party size, and it's not just for trading. Role-playing games are supposed to have roles. Nuke the screen is not a role. Arabot is not a role. All you need is for players to have weaknesses based on their build choices, and they will occasionally want to play in a group. That's it. You don't have to force it. Do you have any idea how broken cooperative play is? For starters, just look at the public party list. Most are trade advertisements, most of what remains are kill service or XP leech games where one person does the map and everyone else goes AFK. The only groups that even remotely qualify as cooperative are usually where one person steamrolls ahead and everyone else struggles to keep up. This can't be any more of a failure. Any change will be an improvement. And I'm not even going to start with PvP. We need limitations. Limitations are the reason anything means anything. Some of the most fun and best designed skills in the game, I think, are the ones that have cooldowns or charges, like Enduring Cry, Flame Dash, and the Vol skills. I'm not saying that every skill should be like that, but more of them should. Get creative with it. Oh, and this giant blue ball over here needs to earn its keep. If it's going to exist, we shouldn't be able to trivialize it so easily. Right now, it's either another life meter or it's reserved into oblivion. Let me put it this way. Once Vol clarity is considered good, we've made some progress. To solve the rate war, take on both sides of it at the same time, the regen and the degen. Mobs should not be hitting so hard that we need to heal 4 million HP per second, and we shouldn't be able to heal 4 million HP per second. One-shots should not be the whole game. Unless you want Path of Exile to play like a game of Simon, errors we make should accumulate on our HP over a period of time longer than a human reflex. GGG. If any game developer can show the world how a dungeon crawler should be, it's you. You've earned the respect of this community. Don't give up.